this place? I seem to have like a memory or a dream. Wait, you're still here? Well, I better help you out then, right? It's time to talk about skirmishes and mass battles. Welcome to the L5R Dojo. My name's Corey. Let's jump right in. When a fight breaks out between 3 or more characters but is small enough to run on a battle map, what you got there is a skirmish. If you have hundreds of troops ready to puncture holes in the enemy, you got yourself a mass battle. Both of these are conflict scenes, but both are run differently. We're going to start with
Skirmish Basics.
Alright, I assume you watched other videos in this series. These 2 videos basically tell you how to run a skirmish. For real, go watch them and then come back. Because they'll cover the skirmish actions of maneuvers and strikes. I will not be reviewing them here. Yes, those 2 actions are so complex, I devoted an entire video just to them. 2 videos just to them. So, they are the most important actions of a skirmish. All characters in a skirmish need to roll their initiative. The base of their initiative value, where it starts from, is their focus value. That's only if they're ready to fight. If any of the characters are surprised or they're ambushed, they substitute their vigilance instead. You're going to add to that the result of a tactics check, TN1. And for a success, you'll add 1 plus 1 for each bonus success. If you're the narrator and have a bunch of minions, just use their focus or vigilance value for initiative without rolling dice. Otherwise, you're going to be there all day. Sure, they'll probably go last. It's not a real problem. They're minions. Remember, whatever approach your character uses on their initiative becomes their stance until their first turn. So if they're attacked before then, they will use that approach when using their defensive rolls. But stance bonuses do not apply to the initiative roll itself. Rounds start with the highest initiative value, and each character goes in turn, going all the way down to the lowest initiative value, and then a new round starts. Pretty much like every other role-playing game. Clashes can interrupt this procedure, but we'll talk about that later. Don't clog your mind with it right now. A round in the skirmish doesn't have a set amount of time, unlike other games that might, say, have a 6 or 10 second round. A round in L5R can be whatever length of time a GM needs for everybody to get their actions done. This may be frustrating to some people who want to know exact times for how long their invocations last, but it can be good for others who want to be able to, parlay a battle and have those good, dramatic scenes.
Skirmish actions.
What can a character do in a round? Usually, 1 action plus a repositioning. But you can get a second action on water stance. We've covered that before. Positioning can be done before or after an action, but only once per turn. This allows your character to move 1 range band. This is not considered an action to do, so it can be combined with actions that have the movement keyword. There are a few actions I covered in Intrigue and Duel conflicts. These are assist, prepare items, and calming breath. That's right, pulling out a weapon and putting it away is considered an action unless you're doing an Iijitsu technique. It's pretty great that a bunch of this work for these actions are already covered in other videos. It's almost as if I don't need a dedicated skirmish video. So the guard action is an interesting action. If the person you wish to guard is within weapons range of your readied weapon, you can increase the TN of any attack action against them. You've guarded them from attacks. This can be done with a melee or a ranged weapon. How can you do this in some circumstances might be a stretch, as you somehow guard a person from being shot with an arrow with your throwing knife who's outside of the range of your throwing knife. Technically within the rules, but how you want to describe that, how it happens, it might stretch believability. Also, it never says how much ammunition is expended when using this technique with a range action. Only that a character could fire arrows to harry an attacker. Look, I'm all for simple rules, and this one's pretty good and pretty simple. But it just needs a little bit of cleaning up, just a touch. Wait is your hold action. It works just like readying an action in other games. It gives you an if-then statement. For example, if the enemy comes within range, I shoot them with an arrow. If someone tries to tickle you, you give them a big wet kiss. Pretty handy if you know something's coming. The only limitation is that there's no movement actions that can be part of your wait. And it only lasts until the end of round, not until your next turn. If the triggering event doesn't occur, you still get to take an action at the end of the round. So even if your bet of the if-then didn't pay off, you don't lose the action. Lastly, there's the challenge action, which may result in a clash. This is a confusing one, and it's kind of weird, and it gives me a bit of a headache. You know how I like simple things? Not here. Basically, it's a mini duel inside a skirmish, but it happens at the end of the round, outside of normal turns, and doesn't have to last for more than one turn, but should? So how does it work? The challenger yells a challenge to the target up to 5 range bands away. Yep, it can be like a half a field away. Then, it makes the easiest of easy TN1 command checks. If successful, then the target decides if they want to accept or decline. If they decline, they lose glory equal to the challenger's ranks in command, plus bonus successes on the command check. And all of their allies who have glory less than the challenger gains 2 strife. Okay. But there's more. Then, the challenger gets a void point as well. Also, the GM has to give them $100 and use of their car for the rest of the week. It's in the book. If the target accepts, both characters must stake 10 glory and 5 honor, which they will forfeit if they do anything to sabotage the duel, including taking an attack or scheme action before the clash starts at the end of the round. Now, we go back to the skirmish as normal, going through everyone's action until the end of the round. During this time, if another outside character messes with the clash, for example, attacking one of the 2 duelists or giving one of the 2 duelists a magical advantage, they lose 10 honor. Another character can legally cut in and replace one of the 2 duelists by making their own challenge to one of those 2 duelists. But this could allow, like, a bunch of characters to start challenging all of the targets that are involved in a weird, contest of shouted challenges until the end of the round. And if somebody else's challenge works after you did a challenge, theirs usurps yours, and you can't, say, no, I was challenged third. Okay, so you finally made it to the end of the round. And there may or may not be the same 2 initial combatants, but there are 2, and you're ready to go. This works like a mini duel. And oh, look, there, I've made a video about duels that I already showed you to go review. So, moving on, just like a duel, there are 3 phases: the stare down, the action phase, and the phase where you determine a winner. So, let's go through those, right? So the stare down of a clash works just like the stare down of the duel. Both combatants can bid strife to increase the initiative value for just this part of the clash. It doesn't affect your initiative value for the rest of the skirmish. And then you gain strife equal to the number of the rounds the clash has gone on for. All right, just like a regular duel. Just like a duel, both characters take an action in that initiative order. It isn't explicitly stated, but I tend to allow dual conflict actions to be used here since that makes sense. Remember, if at any time one of the duelists becomes compromised or unmasked, a finishing blow is triggered, and it works just like the finishing blow from the duel, interrupting the current action to take effect. Then, once both characters have had their action, if any duelist is incapacitated, unconscious, or dying, the other wins. Every character on the loser's team gets 3 strife, and the winner's team gets high fives. If neither are incapacitated, unconscious, or dying after they've had their actions, then either duelist may simply leave the clash with no penalty. The clash doesn't have a winner or loser, and life goes on. Birds sing, children play, and nobody in the clash is really very satisfied. If both combatants want to continue, they may, in which case they both skip their regular turns. Unless, of course, somebody interrupts the clash this round with their own challenge, in which case the new combatant takes the place. But since this is technically the same clash, the stare down gives that person not one, but the number of rounds that the clash has gone on with in Strife. That's how that works. It's, like I said, this is a confusing thing. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about running a skirmish. They end when one side can no longer fight due to surrendering, running away, or just straight up being beat so hard they're down or dead.
Mass battle basics.
A mass battle is for two armies, not for the PCs alone versus an army. If I was doing that, I just probably make that a narrative theme punctuated by the pivotal skirmishes as they make their way through. That's not what this is about. Since mass battles are dependent on armies, the first thing you need to do is understand what makes up an army. And for that, we need to have an army character sheet. The two biggest factors in an army is their strength and discipline. The strength rating is basically your army's hit points, and their discipline is their morale. Instead of damage, an army does attrition damage, which is turned into casualty points. I don't know why they called these all different things, just makes it more complicated. They should just be like, an army does damage to your strength. If your casualty points exceeds your army's strength, it is routed and you are defeated. When routed, all PCs and adversary NPCs that are part of the army that is routed take a critical strike with severity 12. So this could kill you. Or they don't, and the narrator can just narrate what happens to them, like being taken captive or left for dead or teleported to a distant realm. It's your game. Do what you want. It's not like there's rules in a book that I'm trying to explain to make sure. Instead of strife, an army takes panic. If an army's panic exceeds their discipline, then the army's morale collapses and it disperses, unable to fight. The battle is lost, but everyone escapes.
Commanders and leaders.
First, give your army a commander. It could be a PC or an NPC. They will be the only ones rolling initiative, which is a command roll, and they will determine what the objective is for each round. Yes, this works a bit like an intrigue conflict in that there will be objectives and momentum points. If a commander dies, the army gains 10 panic, and the person with the next highest status takes charge, or maybe the PCs just bicker about it for a while. Now, make each PC and major NPC a leader and give them a cohort. Yes, commanders and leaders are different. Commanders command an army, leaders lead a cohort. Don't confuse them like I did in an earlier draft of this script. A commander is supposed to dictate who exactly is a leader and how many cohorts there are. But leaving a PC out of a leadership position when they want one is what we call a Richard move, and is one of the many reasons a player might leave your game. Don't be a Richard. A cohort is a part of an army, but they don't say how big, so it's as big as it needs to be. They can have a specialization or not. If it is specialized, it might have like special rules or a cool ability, like cavalry or a stealth advantage. Cohorts don't have an army sheet, but rather, when they take damage, it is done to the main army on the main army sheet. If and when they take casualties, they can be reinforced from the main army as needed, between rounds, because rounds are pretty long in a conflict like this. But if they take casualties equal to 1/4 or greater the total of an army's strength, the narrator can rule that the cohort is destroyed. Now, get a map and sketch up some terrain features and fortifications. This will be a great way to track where your cohorts are and what they're doing. Also, fortifications can act like army armor, reducing attrition damage. Different terrains will also change how your army reacts. Unless an army is stopped by something, they can reasonably move anywhere on the map, as rounds in mass battles take minutes to hours to perform. kind of like a downtime activity. It's why you can also always reinforce your cohort. But if you have this handy book, you can turn your battle maps into zones, and moving from zone to zone uses the march action. TN3 command check that moves you to an adjacent zone, plus one more zone for every 3 bonus successes. This book is alright for some extra goodies when mass battles are concerned, with detailed instructions on building your army, including what types of troops are in your army, what kind of training they have, and how to maintain that army, and what happens to an army when it's done being an army. There are new terrain types for both mass battles and skirmishes to spice up all of your encounters. But we are covering the basics here. If you want a comprehensive review of Field of Victory, raise your voice. Or, bribe me with cash on my Patreon. We got our armies ready. We got our commanders and leaders. It's time to smash them together like 5-year-olds with action figures.
Strategic objectives.
Commanders roll their initiatives. TN1 command check. Then each commander chooses their strategic objective. At least, that's what the book says to do. This is obviously a stupid idea because we were playing a cooperative role-playing game. Cooperative. So instead, all the players should get together and decide which objective they think is best. Just being told what to do, that can be okay for players unsure of what they're doing, but taking agency away from the players and bringing down orders from on high, or worse, letting one PC dictate to everyone else what they are doing, well, this is a recipe for disaster and will tank your game. Let everyone discuss and agree on the strategic objective together, and then use the commander position to adjudicate arguments or indecisions. If a PC abuses their position as commander, let them know gently, take them aside and discuss it. You can even give a penalization of honor or have a higher up remove them from the position if they just can't listen to reason. It's good to remember that if you did not complete a strategic objective in the previous round, you can pick it up again, keeping your momentum points from the last round. Once an objective is complete, they cannot use the same objective for 3 rounds. A leader that completes an objective, though, gets 3 glory. But everybody else that actually helped in getting momentum points for it, they can go kick rocks. Only the person that gets the last momentum point gets that 3 glory. Capturing a position is exactly what you think. You try and take control of a gate or a watchtower or any other type of entrenchment. The bigger the fortification, the harder it is to do, with the amount of momentum needed ranging from 4 to 12. When you complete it, the enemy must leave, and you can now immediately occupy that fortification. An army can gain 1 momentum point for every casualty inflicted on the enemy to complete this objective. Cutting off the head is going after the leader of a cohort or the commander themselves. Simply by attacking the cohort that the enemy leads, you gain 3 momentum points towards your goal. If an army gets the momentum points equal to or more than the difficulty value to corner the leader... Wait, how do you determine the difficulty value of a leader? Wait, if I'm targeting a PC and the narrator... Well, what's the difficulty value of the PC? Yeah, it doesn't say. You don't know how to calculate that. Nobody knows. It's a mystery. So, make it up. 6, 9, 12. That sounds good since you get 3 momentum points per attack. We'll say that, okay? So, the leader of a cohort that gets the final momentum point, they deliver a finishing blow to the enemy, just like in a duel. And their army suffers 10 panic, or 20 if it's the commander. This can be done in a clash as well, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Draw them in tries to move an enemy out of position so you can take advantage of them. You can do this if you can goad the enemy into attacking you. For example, if they accept your challenge, that is a momentum point for you. If they attack you and you take less than 3 casualties, That's a momentum point for you. If your army gets momentum points equal to the enemy commander's vigilance, you succeed and the enemy suffers 5 panic and takes double attrition in the next round. Grind them down is just a normal sortie on the battlefield, attempting to destroy as many of the enemy as you can. You gain momentum points for every casualty and win when you get enough equal to the enemy's glory plus command skill ranks. When your army succeeds, the enemy gains 10 panic. Lastly, seize victory with an exclamation point. You shouldn't be able to perform this objective without having a few others under your belt, as this is the swan song of the battle. The book suggests at least 3 other objectives be completed, but a narrator can change this if they think it's appropriate. Again, you gain momentum points equal to the casualties you inflict on the enemy. If your momentum points equal the enemy commander's focus value plus tactic skill ranks, you win the battle. Straight up win. The enemy has to retreat, and everybody in the enemy's army loses 10 honor and 10 glory, and you win, ending the mass battle. Congratulations.
Mass battle actions.
On your turn, your commander picks one leader to take an action. Once that action is complete, the other army picks a leader to take an action, and then returns back to your commander to pick a leader to take an action if they haven't gone this round. This goes back and forth until every leader, including the commanders, have had all of their actions for the round, and then the round is over and a new one can begin. There are 4 types of actions a leader can take: assault, challenge, rally, and reinforce. And of course, march from this other book. Challenge is just like the challenge action from a skirmish and will result in a clash if accepted. It targets a cohort's leader if in range, and any strife suffered to allies is instead taken as panic. You might say, hey, a round in a mass battle takes way longer than one in a skirmish. Do you do all of the rounds of a clash at once? Nope. By the rules as written, you only get 1 round of a clash for 1 round of a mass battle. You might think this is quite silly. Assault is how an army attacks. A leader attempts a TN2 tactics check, and if successful, does attrition damage equal to their ranks in their command skill plus bonus successes. Notice how your damage is not based on the strength of your army, but rather the skill of your leader. Rally is a support or help action. First, the leader you are attempting to rally gains assistance on their next action. Then you make a TN1 command check, and your army removes 1 panic plus 1 for every bonus success. Reinforce is the defensive action that may increase the TN to affect your cohort, just like the guard action. With a TN2 tactics check, you increase the TN of the attack actions against that cohort by 1 plus 1 for every 2 bonus successes. But it's just for 1 round, just like the guard action. You can also occupy any empty fortification or zone with this action. And that's it. Opposing cohorts take turns doing these actions every round until one of the armies collapses in a rout, morale collapse, retreat, or if there was some other goal like, destroying a magic fortress or taking down one specific character, if that was achieved, sure, the battle ends as well. Now, just like in Intrigue, everyone is supposed to role-play their involvement with this battle. How they move and how they perform the actions, what they say, the banter, the strategy, the insults. And just like in Intrigue, I'm underwhelmed with these mass battle rules. So, you guys know what time it is. It's time for Criticism Corner! Yay! Look, I know criticizing the rules I'm supposed to teach you and get you excited about playing this game might turn some people off, but every game has bad points, and I point them out so you as a narrator can see the problems in your game before they can happen and change your game to account for them, either in how you present it or even if you want to homebrew it. And it's my great hope that the makers of the game will take my advice and make the next edition of the game even better. So let's get into why I dislike mass battles. First off, as you can see, there's a lot missing from these rules. Scouting and information gathering is vital in mass combat, yet these rules assume perfect knowledge of the map and the enemy. Magic users are reduced to a cohort special ability and doesn't take into account the awesome power of invocations. But these are smaller gripes. My big problem is that this reduces mass combat to an army simulator, where the PCs pick an action, roll some dice, and then just tell you to roleplay that. Then you do that every round until you win. It pulls the personality and personal touch from the combat you can get with skirmishes and duels. It's boring. And to be honest, in the time I and other narrators have performed mass combat on this channel and our sister channel, we give lip service to these rules and instead focus on what the PCs want to do personally and then just make up how we can get that done. My Ninja PC wants to take a gate. He's not going to use an assault action or a challenge or any of these things. Their cohorts are going to sneak behind the enemy and silently take them out. Skullduggery rolls, poison effects, smoke bombs, all sorts of other dramatic complications. My Shugenja PC wants to use the Kami to use the Invocation Earthquake to shake a cohort. How does that affect things? Does it affect also my army? What if my courtier wants to use information they gain to embarrass an enemy leader? How much panic does that do? Should I stop and make an intrigue scene inside my mass combat battle scene? Because I will. I'll do whatever it takes to make a mass combat as epic as possible, letting the PCs do personal things that only their character can do instead of just yelling commands and orders to their army to do an action. Previous versions of the L5R game had mass battle rules as well, but it focused on cool personal scenes where the PC could capture an enemy banner, had a chance to protect a very important person or rescue a comrade in trouble, create a rivalry, or be given a special bonus from the Kami. Sure, these things only affected the players and didn't inform the larger battle in any way whatsoever. But that was the point. The game is about the PCs, not how many attrition points an army can deliver to another army. Players want their characters to feel special, and that special feeling is what's missing from these mass battle rules. Now you might say, then just use the skirmish rules. And yeah, that's kind of what I do. I'm just saying I'm leaving an entire aspect of the game out. And I find that troubling. Trust me, what makes Legend of the Five Rings special isn't being some sort of war simulator or intrigue simulator, but instead how the world and the PCs within it are all impacted as they explore, interact, and grow within it. A lesson I learned when trying to create a hex crawl exploration simulation into Legend of the Five Rings myself. Guess what? All that garbage I created, all of these rules I made about survival roles and how many hexes of movement you can do and tracking food and finding shelter, all of it distracted from the L5R experience. It didn't add to it. So I threw it all away and focused on personal character drama. And that's it. That's all I have to say on the subject. If you found this video helpful, please like it. Let YouTube know. I mean, there's algorithms. I want other people to see and know and love Legend of the Five Rings. So please do the things to make YouTube know that you love this video. This marks the end of the rules on how to play Legend of the Five Rings. But that's not to say there aren't more things to talk about, like character creation, non-player characters, economies, lore, and reviews of supplemental books. Hey, tell me what you'd like to see in the comments. And you can also buy me a coffee by joining my Patreon. I'd love you to join the Dead Unicorn Club. Come and talk to me and create more games. I'm also on Discord. I'm also on Mastodon. I wish you all the best in running your own games. So don't be afraid to go roll some dice.